If you are currently wearing a barefoot shoe, or if you're even thinking about moving to a more natural, minimal style of footwear, there are a few things that you need to know about how the barefoot industry works, how it's worked in the past, and some key biomechanical things that relate to your foot. As someone who's been wearing barefoot shoes for the last 10 years, as someone that in general promotes them, and I generally think they're a good idea, there are still some things that you need to know which I want to unpack in this video. And this video is not designed to change your mind. My only hope is by the end of this video, you'll be armed with better information that will enable you to make the right footwear choice for you. Because the more that I learn and the more that I start to understand about feet, the more I realize that footwear is more than just style or function or fashion. Your footwear choice really does govern your biomechanics, and that can impact how you move through the world, how you interpret it. There's a lot to unpack here. I want to share with you my personal story and how it's impacted me, but in order for you to understand this clearly, we have to go right back to the beginning. So let's go back to 2012, where barefoot shoes were quite literally all over the headlines. There was Chris McDougall's book, Born to Run, was flying off the shelves. People were running through the streets barefoot. The US military had banned the use of barefoot shoes. It was a wild time to be alive. But the big controversy at the time, as you may remember, was one of the key players in the barefoot shoe industry, and that was Vibram 5 Fingers. This company got into quite a little bit of hot water with some of the claims that they were making that people could benefit simply from wearing the shoes alone. And some people called bullshit on this. In fact, 150,000 people joined a class action lawsuit against Vibram 5 Fingers, and the result of that was that the company had to pay back $3.75 million and also had to retract their statements. Now, I recently just dove into the court documents here to make sure I've got my facts straight, and looking at some of these claims, I don't blame them because this is actually pretty wild. So in some of their marketing material, you can see there was claims like this: 5 reasons to wear or train in Vibram 5 Fingers. So this was something that was displayed in stores that were selling Vibram 5 Fingers shoes. So looking back on this now with 10 years of experience in barefoot shoes, I can say that a couple of these feel very dodgy, especially number 2 and number 4. But if you thought that class action lawsuit was the end of the barefoot industry, you would be wrong, because in 2021, sales of barefoot shoes reached $471 million, and they are predicted to go much higher than that, up to 700, some estimates are, by 2031. So it's clear that more and more consumers are again coming around to the idea of wearing a more natural, barefoot, minimal style shoe, but this presents huge problems for many of those people. And we're going to get into why that is in this video. But first I want to share a little bit of my story, what's happened with my feet and knees and ankles and lower back over the last 10 years, in the hope that that will help you understand your body a little bit better. So as someone that has experienced things like plantar fasciitis, knee pain, lower back pain, I was pretty receptive to this message that Vibram 5 Fingers were sending out at the time. For someone who's a functional strength coach and had to demonstrate complex movements and really be that person to set a good example, I really felt like I had to be the perfect biomechanical example. And having foot pain and knee pain and limitations in my mobility really played a lot on my mindset. And to be honest, that had a hugely negative effect on how I saw myself. I felt that I wasn't good enough. I felt that I didn't deserve to be a coach, or I didn't deserve to be teaching people, simply because I didn't have the perfect biomechanical body at the time. And actually, I still don't. So as someone in that situation, I was fairly receptive to that message. And although I didn't buy a pair of Vibram 5 Fingers, because I have a sense of style, I did end up just buying a pair of very normal minimal style shoes. I think it was like the New Balance Minimus or something like that. And I began to wear them mostly in the gym. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted my feet to be strengthening as I was doing the rest of my regular strength training. I didn't, however, go out and start walking and hiking and running in barefoot shoes, because I knew that that would place way too much stress on my biomechanics and the limitations that I had. And that is a key thing that I want you to understand. Your individual foot health will determine how successfully you transition into barefoot shoes. And everything went fairly well. I didn't really experience any negative side effects of wearing barefoot shoes, not that I noticed. But I didn't really experience that much change either, especially when it came to knee pain or ankle mobility, which were my main concerns. And looking back on that now, I realize why. It's very obvious, because I had quite a high medial arch, I had a very rigid midfoot, and so my rigid midfoot wasn't allowing the base of the heel bone to actually enable the ankle mobility, and that was causing knee pain and lower back pain and many other things. So the key point here is that simply wearing barefoot shoes, in my case, didn't allow me to improve my mobility, because the rigid shape of my foot wasn't going to change simply by wearing shoes that were flat and lacking support. As far as my feet were concerned, they were perfectly fine supporting themselves, and taking away that support didn't make any difference. And in fact, now looking back on it, I'm quite sure that wearing minimal barefoot shoes without support may have even contributed to my midfoot getting even more rigid. Now, I'm certainly not here to blame barefoot shoe companies for that messaging. I'm just telling you this because I know the symptoms that I had in my foot and the structure that my foot presented is a very common one. And there's going to be many other people expecting to see these benefits, and they're not going to get them because of the way their foot is currently functioning. And until you identify and rectify that dysfunction, until you start training the foot specifically for the dysfunction that you currently have, it's likely that simply wearing barefoot shoes is not going to result in the improvements that you're after. Having said all that, I think the journey that I've been on and what I've learned, a lot of that has come from being more aware of my feet and bringing more awareness to how my body functions as I'm walking and running and training. And I think being in barefoot shoes, especially in the gym, and spending more time wearing them in day-to-day life has brought more awareness to my feet. I'm much more tuned in now to the sensations that come through my feet, and that's because I'm walking around in a very minimal shoe and I can perceive that environment. And I don't think I would have learnt those things if I hadn't been wearing barefoot shoes for this long. But the key problem here that I see, and the big lie, if you will, that I see that is now permeated through the entire barefoot shoe industry, is those original claims that date back to 2012. I hear people saying things like, once I started wearing these barefoot minimal style shoes, I got increased ankle mobility, my knee pain went away, my lower back pain went away. And I'm not saying that these people are liars, I'm not calling them out. All I'm saying is that your individual situation with your foot is likely wildly different from that person, and you can't expect the same results as them. And as more and more people start to put themselves in more minimal barefoot style shoes, these problems are only going to increase. So it's up to you to be a little bit extra skeptical. You have to look at this with a slightly more critical mindset. And most of all, you have to decide whether you have the time, the effort, and the inclination to start learning about your feet. Because if you do have foot problems and you aren't interested in solving them biomechanically through exercise and focused attention, then it's likely that barefoot shoes are going to present problems for you, because no two feet are the same, not even the 2 feet that you have. If you study your feet closely, you'll notice that there are often big differences left to right. We are not symmetrical beings by any means, and that certainly isn't the case when it comes to our feet. Now, the great thing is there is so much information and so much to dive into when it comes to the feet. It really is a super interesting topic, you know, a very complex biomechanical system, arguably the most complex biomechanical system in the body. And if you are a hiker or you want to walk for the rest of your life like I do, then it can be very valuable to look into this stuff and start learning about it. Now, I'm doing a podcast in a couple of hours on this topic with Justin Outdoors. That'll be out in a couple of weeks, but I also want to send out to my newsletter a whole bunch more information that I couldn't get in this video. And I will make new videos on this topic in the future. So if you are new here, if this is the first video you're seeing, my name is Chase. Welcome to my channel. Take a look around. It's all about health, happiness, and hiking. I'll see you on the summit.